go in and start establishing all of the face planes for my bear sculpture. Establishing these sculpting planes is a really good idea to do pretty early on. In every sense, we're going to be reproducing those key anatomical landmarks that we've talked about previously, but now in 3D on the model itself. It's time to start making some real decisions as to where all of these elements are going to be so that we can start layering in some additional detail with the Dyntopo toolset. So here it is. Here's my little bear. Okay, I'm going to be working entirely on the face. And whenever I'm working on faces and establishing these face planes, the first thing that I do is I go in and I turn off the perspective warping of my image. That way I'm really seeing a true representation of how the spatial relationship between all of these features is going to play out. When you have perspective on, you don't necessarily get a tremendous kind of fine-tuning understanding of this. So I like to turn it off. It's up to you though. If you sculpt better and work better with perspective on, do it. There's no wrong way of working. Okay, so the first decision I need to make here is that I need to figure out where my eyes are going to be. Now, as I look in this, one of the things that I remember pretty distinctly from my reference is this nice slope and a pretty big distance between the eyeballs and the top of the skull. So I think my eyes are going to go right in here somewhere. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to grab my masking tool, make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to start drawing on the mesh itself. I'm not using face sets. I'm using the masking tools. The reason I like the masking tools in this process is that I can draw and I can see how it's working. I can see it from both sides of my model itself, and I can already see that I've just drawn it way too far back on the head itself. They need to be a little bit more in line, kind of like right in here. Okay, let's clear my mask. Let's try it again, maybe somewhere right around in here. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I may have made it a little bit too big, but generally speaking, this is really working out well. I like the overall placement. We have a little bit of a distance in here between the eyeballs, which allows us to create the bridge that we saw very pronouncedly in the reference images. And I like the overall shape of this inside of my scene. I think this is going to work out well. Now, I think at the end of the day here, I'm going to make some small adjustments to the size of my head and the location of my head. Yeah, now it's a little bit too spherical. That's okay. That's why we're here. Now we're starting to create that lovely slope that we saw before. And let's invert my mask. I'm going to smooth this area out a little bit. And now I'm going to start working with the flatten tool. And it's this tool inside of our tool properties. It's one of the red ones. And the flatten tool I like because it allows us to create some wonderful planes. Let's clear the mask there we go. Yeah, just a small little understanding of how that works. Now you could go in if you'd like, and this is another great alternative. You could go in with the Sculpt Draw tool. I'm going to hold down the Control key and just push those polygons in to start creating the orbit of the eye itself. Now we're thinking about planes here. We're thinking about flat shapes. We're not thinking so much about making a final sculpture here. We're just thinking about planes. Now one of the things that I've learned about sculpting and making characters is that the eyes are almost always at an angle. There we go. Start bringing out that nose. Smooth it out. I got a little too crazy here. I'm just trying to make a flat plane in here. I'm going to start pushing the eyeballs back. They're almost always at an angle. There's the bridge of the nose, and then the eyes make a plane that goes back. We can already start to see how this is working. We can see maybe the illusion here of the orbit of the eye. If you need to, zero it out. Push and pull things. Look at it from 3D. Don't sculpt and spend too much time in one angle, or at one angle, excuse me. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's a good place to begin. It's a good place to begin. I'm just trying to figure out where the planes are. I'm going to go back into my Sculpt Draw and just push this in a little bit. I think I've made my eye a little bit too big. let's just move them in real fast. Being mindful of how it looks, of course, in all angles. I'm not trying to sculpt the eyes itself. I'm just trying to figure out where that plane lives, where that big shape is. The details of this, we're going to get in, use the Dyntopo tools to really carve out a pretty significant area in here. But that's a good start for the plane itself. Now the next thing I want to look at is the bridge. And this is where we deviate pretty significantly from the basic simple shape. The basic simple shape here is just a gigantic rectangle cube kind of mashed up in the inside of this. And now I'm ready to start kind of walking away from that pretty significantly. I'm going to grab the move brush here. Let's see. Yeah, this is going to be the bottom. Okay, there we go. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. There's the nice little plane change that we're looking for. And this is where it's really going to change the most, because my nose is just way too big out here at the beginning, or the end, excuse me. Yeah, there we go. Now it's starting to look bearish. Remember, we got the nose up here, and then we have the tapering as it goes down towards the opening of the jaw. Yeah, there we go. Now let's start figuring out how we're going to represent that a little bit more prominently. I think I'm already noticing here that it's not prominent enough. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit of a curve in there as well. I'm going to go back into the flatten tool and just flatten out those planes. I like this flatten tool. Brush is too big because it just helps me create flat surfaces. Good for a basic shape exploration. Yeah, there we go. Just flattening it out just a little bit to help me understand how all this is going to work together. Now, the other thing that I want to be mindful of is how that bottom jaw is going to start to interact within here. Let's start prototyping that pretty early on. Let's see, where do I want that jaw to be? Maybe right in here. So let's do this. I'm going to go into Sculpt Draw. I'm going to hold down the Control key and just kind of push in a little bit. Yeah. Go back to the plane tool. Let's kind of create a plane for the cheek. Yep, I'm liking the way that's working. I'm going to make it a little bit more pronounced down here at the bottom. Back to the plane tool. Just kind of flatten it out. What I'm looking to create here are these breaks, these sculpting breaks. Because now I can see in my imagination the corner, if you will, of this jaw right here. That's what we're trying to establish, the corner of that jaw. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's a good place to begin. Let's go back to Sculpt Draw. Make my brush a little bit smaller. Hold down the Control key. I'm just going to kind of accentuate this. Sometimes when you're sculpting, it's okay to push some of these details, and then you can smooth them out later. You're setting landmarks for yourself as well. Yeah, like this in here, I'm going to smooth out. But I like this landmark. That's a good landmark for me. You don't necessarily have to, really make an edge like that. I mean, you certainly could. That's kind of a cool chiseled look. That's a believable look because it's informed by actual anatomical features, right? This is the corner of his jaw. Now, I think for me, I'm going to hit the undo key. I've just noticed something. If this is the bottom, the jaw should probably be down over here. Yeah. Oh, that's way better. Yeah, now we're talking. Let's push in. Go back to the plane tool here real fast and just look at our sculpting planes themselves. So we're just trying to capture how these planes change shape. And I'm doing it just through some simple tools. I'm going to push out with Sculpt Draw. Trying to really smooth it out just a touch. Really make that bottom jaw pretty pronounced. Go back to my plane tool. Let's see if we can just kind of flatten it out a little bit. And in doing so, I can see that this shape in here at the top for the nose has gotten way too collapsed. Yeah, now we're getting there. Let's go back to move. You find me whenever I'm sculpting, I go into move often. It just really works for me because I can just grab some stuff, push and pull it around. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this is starting to look pretty cool. I'm happy with this. This is starting to look a little bit closer to what my imagination is looking like. Yeah, may have gotten a little too crazy with that curvature on the nose. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Now we got to do some detailing in here for the nose, but this is starting to work a little bit. Now I'm looking at my planes from every angle possible. Just doing so ensures that it's working from as many different angles. And I'm seeing that maybe the eye plane here, if you imagine just a straight kind of square that goes over this section, is just a little bit, yeah, there we go. A little bit too far back. I'm pushing it by bringing the brow forward. I'm bringing it, the entire shape, more towards the nose, making more of a sharper upwards and downwards plane, if you will, going across the eyes. Yeah. Now the other thing that I can see from the top is this transition between the skull. If you look carefully here, I got this oops. Let's see if I can get my drawing tool to come out. Nope. Let me just go into the annotation tool. If you look very carefully here, I got a really cool shape here. That's neat. Excuse me, the really cool shape here. That's neat. But then it transitions very oddly into the neck itself. I got to explore that. See how I can start to refine that a little bit. And I think it's just that I've added a great indication of the bottom of the jaw. But now I need to maybe, let's see, I'm in the move tool. Let's go into the move tool. Maybe let's just experiment here for a second. If I start making the neck a little bit thinner, how's that going to influence the model itself? I got some pretty puffy cheeks. I think I went too far, so let's go back and hit undo. What happens if we smooth out that transition? Yeah, that works a little bit. I'm happy with that. Let's go back into Sculpt Draw, make the brush smaller. I'm going to hold down the Control key and just kind of subtract a little bit. I'm already starting to do some fine detailing, so I apologize. I know that I said we're just going to work on the sculpting planes. But yeah, that's working. Sometimes I can't help myself. I like this stuff so much, I just don't want to stop. Yeah, I think the shape is looking okay. I think for me, the last thing that I'm going to do in my exploration of planes is maybe make this a little bit narrower. Let's look at it in perspective, see what we get. If it works in perspective and in orthographic, yeah, I think we're pretty close. Always pop out to a wide perspective too. If you're sculpting like this and you're just, right on top of the polygons, you're going to lose a little bit of focus and understanding of how these polygons influence the rest of the sculpture itself. Work with planes first. I think that's really a best practice, a service going forward. We're not trying to add all this detail in. We're just trying to establish some basic planes here that will give us some really strong shapes. I'm already making some changes, and that's okay, because there it is. Now we're starting to get that pronounced nose, and that's what I was looking for. You got too inflated in here. A little bit of a cheek here, which is pretty rad. I think that's going to work out well. Yeah, we can start to see the shapes change and flow as they go down towards the bottom of the mouth. And I'm pretty pleased. That's a good place to end for our planes. Again, I'm not trying to sculpt all this interior detail initially. We sculpt in passes by figuring out the landmarks and then sculpting the planes of those landmarks. The basic representation of all of these planes in the sculpture first, that gives us an informed foundation for us to go in and start detailing out this area. Now I know exactly where the nose is going to be. I know exactly where the orbit of the eyes is going to be. I know exactly where I need to place some eye spheres so that I can detail out the eyes. It lays us a really, really strong foundation, one that I think is going to serve you for all of your projects going forward.